Hey LinkedIn and YouTube fam, my name is Cedric and I'm back with another video for you guys today. This one on the topic of outreach and their trigger system. I have their doc pulled up. For me to explain it in layman's terms, I would say that Outreach's trigger system is essentially a way for you to automate actions based off of conditions, and when those conditions are met, those actions are performed. And they have several different options that you can choose from as far as setting up the trigger. One being on when the prospect is created. This can be done from imports. This can be if you have an integration to Salesforce, or if you've been following along in the videos that I've been posting recently, if you have the PySync integration with Outreach and Pipedrive, this will also work. But essentially, whenever new prospect data is created into Outreach or in one of those systems, that is one of the conditions for this trigger to take action. When a prospect record is updated, this can be when like an email is changed or any of those type of data fields on a prospect specifically is changed, this trigger can fire. You can also do a combination of both. This is typically what I use for a lot of the triggers that I set up. You can do off of opportunity created. And if you're using Pipedrive like I am, opportunities, as you know, is essentially deals. It's different words, same thing, semantics, right? But the same kind of thing happens with created and updated. You could do off a close date. You could do off a account being created, account updated, account created and updated. Obviously, accounts are basically the companies themselves. And then off of an email bouncing, I just did a video on auto tagging those if you're using Pipedrive from Outreach to Pipedrive. You could also do when a call is logged, or when a meeting is booked, or when someone doesn't show up to a meeting, if you happen to be using Outreach for those type of workflows. Or of course, if you have an integration with your CRM that you are actually logging those activities. But as we get down a little further, you can set the targets, right? And then as we get down further, you can set different actions, right? So you can choose to add them into a sequence. You can choose to set a specific value or a field whenever those triggers fire off. You could choose to create a task. Whenever those triggers fire off, you can add a tag whenever those triggers fire off, or you can remove tags. So real quick, let me just show you what the type of triggers that I've created in the last month since I started using their trigger system, connecting Pipedrive and Outreach for marketing automation. So I have a trigger for new leads entering our sales cycle. Basically, I chose a lead scoring system. You can choose your own numbers, of course, and how you want to implement it. I chose to look at the stage. Of course, this is also being tied back to Pipedrive, so I'm not, as you guys probably know already, I'm not using Outreach for the CRM aspect. I'm using Pipedrive for that, but I do have them integrated with PySync, so that way when I do have them at a certain stage in Pipedrive, it's updated in Outreach with the same stage, and this is basically where this trigger starts to fall in line. So once that prospect is in this stage of our pipeline, in our sales cycle, right, and they have this lead score, and they're owned by me because, of course, I was running like on a small set of our data. I wasn't going to run it out to our whole organization when I first set this up. They would be added to a specific nurturing sequence that I set up. Obviously, for this trigger to work, there is a little bit of back end, right? Like, where do they get this lead score? All of that is obviously done through PySync, which I'll have a video on soon. Another example of triggers, one that's real easy, I think, is like real low-hanging fruit, is tagging bad emails and stopping sequences. So I have the condition to be if it's owned by me. I'm using the stock feature of emails being bounced. That was shown up here as a condition for it to fire. So when an email bounces in Outreach and they're owned by me, they'll be added with these tags in Outreach, and they'll be stopped in all of the relevant sequences that they're in. The reason why I add the bad tags, obviously, is because I have PySync logic that picks up this change and then syncs it back over to Pipedrive, so then that way our SDRs can update. For example, when there's bad emails, they can go basically scrub our database. But with that basically wraps up our video. I just wanted to kind of briefly explain what are triggers. This is kind of just a brief explanation of like kind of how they're used. Obviously not seeing the whole full picture is probably like, how do you get that from that? But I will be making videos coming shortly on how to actually create all of these workflows, because for the most part all of these triggers are essentially their own workflow, is how I like to look at it. Whether it's new leads entering our sales cycle, the fallback content sequence that we had, another fallback content, stuff like that, marketing related, for our marketing related initiatives. Whenever we're say importing a bunch of people into Pipedrive for those specific initiatives to be hit up in this specific sequence, I have triggers, so then that way when those tags are added in that import, that basically they're automatically added to the proper sequence from those tags being in Pipedrive. Kind of rambling on a little bit, but I just wanted you guys to kind of get the gist of how all these things work, and more videos coming soon. Thank you, LinkedIn. I hope this video brought you value. Hopefully you're happy, hopefully you're smiling. Wishing you perfect health and continued success. See ya.